My name is Serena Caldwell, 31, and I've always thought my family was just normal. That was until one ordinary Tuesday evening in our quiet Issaquah house when the air felt wrong the second I walked through the door. Mom kept glancing at Dad, Dad kept staring at my sister Lauren, and Lauren's smile never reached her eyes. Something was off, and I could feel it in my bones. Instead of asking questions, I did the opposite. Right there at the dinner table, I announced I was leaving the next morning for a 10-day creative retreat in Leavenworth. No phone, no contact, total silence. Their faces lit up in a way I'd never seen before. Too fast, too eager. The next morning, as I dragged my suitcase toward the door, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn, suddenly appeared, grabbed my wrist, and whispered, "Midnight next Friday. Serena." That's when you'll finally understand everything. Her grip was ice cold, her eyes dead serious, and before I could say a word, she was gone. I did leave the house, but I never went to Leavenworth. Before I tell you what happened that Friday at exactly 12 o'clock, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the full story. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt something was seriously wrong with the people closest to you? And where in the world are you watching from tonight? Your comments keep this channel alive. Let's get this video to 10,000 likes together. Now, here's what I saw when the clock finally struck midnight. I took the early airport shuttle back to Issaquah that afternoon, 3 hours earlier than anyone expected. The client meeting in Portland had wrapped up faster than planned, and something inside me said, "Don't tell them I'm coming home yet." I had the driver drop me 2 blocks away near the trailhead behind the elementary school. From there, I walked the back way through the neighbor's yard, sneakers silent on the wet grass. The November drizzle muffled everything. When I reached our street, I stayed in the shadows of the cedars and watched my own house for a full 5 minutes. Both cars were in the driveway, Dad's silver Highlander and Lauren's white Jeep. Ryan's truck, too. Everyone was home on a random Tuesday. That alone felt wrong. I circled to the side gate, slipped into the backyard, and crouched beside the garbage bins. The garage side door was cracked open 6 inches, just enough for a sliver of light to spill out. Inside, I heard the unmistakable metallic scrape of the old floor safe being dragged across concrete. My stomach dropped. That safe hadn't been touched since Grandpa died 8 years ago. I pulled out my phone hit record and eased the door open another inch. Through the gap, I saw Lauren on her knees, hair tied back, flashlight between her teeth, while she rifled through yellowed envelopes. Dad stood over her holding a stack of documents, muttering numbers under his breath. Mom hovered by the workbench, arms crossed, glancing toward the house every few seconds like a lookout. $2 million payable on death plus the Vanguard account, Dad whispered, voice low but clear enough for the microphone to catch. Everything's still in her name only. Lauren flipped to the beneficiary page. "We just need her signature transferred. Marcus says he can handle the rest if we get the forms filled tonight." Mom's voice came sharp. "Keep it down. She's not supposed to be back until tomorrow night." I zoomed the camera, heart slamming so hard I was scared they'd hear it. There it was, the original life insurance policy Grandpa took out for me when I graduated college. The one I'd forgotten even existed until this moment. And next to it, the brokerage statements showing almost $800,000 in blue-chip stocks, all titled solely to Serena Caldwell. No joint owners, no contingencies. Just me. Dad slid the papers into a manila folder, the same kind he used when he was still teaching at the community college. Lauren closed the safe, spun the dial, then wiped her fingerprints off the handle with the sleeve of her hoodie. Mom finally relaxed when the garage door rolled down from the inside button. I stayed crouched in the dark until their footsteps faded into the house. Only then did I stop the recording. 4 minutes and 37 seconds of pure evidence. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I backed out the way I came, walked the 2 blocks to where I'd left my suitcase hidden under a cedar, and sat on the wet curb trying to breathe. The rain soaked through my jacket, but I barely felt it. Every word they'd said looped in my head. Marcus. Forms filled tonight. Transfer her signature. They weren't waiting for me to get sick or die. They were planning to make it look like I'd already signed everything over right now while I was supposedly hundreds of miles away. I opened the airline app, canceled the fake return flight I'd never intended to take, and started searching for an Airbnb within walking distance of my own house. I needed eyes inside before they finished whatever they were starting. By the time the garage light clicked off and the windows went dark, I'd already booked a place 4 streets over, paid in full, and requested early check-in. I dragged my suitcase through the drizzle keys to a house I suddenly wasn't sure was mine anymore, cutting into my palm. Tomorrow night they'd sit down to dinner expecting me to be gone for 10 days, and I'd let them believe it. Dinner smelled like Mom's usual rosemary chicken, but nobody was talking about the food. Dad passed the potatoes twice without looking up. Lauren kept topping off my water glass even though I hadn't touched it. Ryan stared at his plate the entire time, fork pushing peas into neat little piles. Mom finally broke the silence. Serena, your dad and I were talking about setting up a family charitable foundation. You know, something that keeps giving after we're gone. I nodded, chewing slowly. That sounds nice. Lauren jumped in, voice bright. Exactly. We'd pool everything together, Grandpa's old policy, the brokerage stuff, whatever we each have. One big trust. That way, nobody ever fights over it. Dad cleared his throat. The tax advantages are huge, and it protects the money from lawsuits or bad decisions down the line. I set my fork down. So who would control it? Lauren answered before anyone else could. We figured the 4 of us as co-trustees, but since you're the only one with substantial assets right now, your name would stay primary beneficiary until the transfer is complete. Purely administrative. Mom reached across and patted my hand. It's just paperwork, honey. We'd handle everything so you don't have to think about it while you're off doing your design work. Ryan finally spoke, barely above a whisper. It makes sense on paper. I watched Lauren's eyes flick to him sharp, then back to me, with that practiced big sister smile. Think of it as future-proofing. You're single, no kids yet. God forbid something happens. We don't want the state taking half. Dad slid a thin folder across the table, casual as passing the salt. Inside were blank beneficiary change forms for the life insurance, and a new durable power of attorney pre-filled with my name at the top, and spaces for my signature at the bottom. Lauren's handwriting on the sticky notes. Sign here and here, will notarize tomorrow. I opened the folder, scanned the pages, and felt the room tilt. The new beneficiary listed wasn't the family foundation. It was Lauren Harper Mitchell, sole primary 100%. Mom kept talking words soft and reasonable. It's only temporary. Once the foundation is official, we switch everything back. You'll hardly notice. Lauren leaned forward. I already found a notary who owes Ryan a favor. 10 minutes and it's done. You won't even have to leave the house. I closed the folder and slid it back toward Dad. I'll look these over tonight. Big decisions deserve a clear head. Disappointment flashed across Lauren's face, gone in an instant. Mom's smile tightened. Dad just nodded like that was perfectly reasonable. Ryan stood first, muttering about checking something in the garage. Lauren followed him with her eyes, then turned back to me, voice sugary. Take all the time you need, sis. We're only trying to protect what Grandpa wanted for all of us. I helped clear the table, moving on autopilot. While Mom loaded the dishwasher, she added over the running water. You know we'd never let anything happen to your money, right? This is about keeping it in the family. I dried a plate, said nothing, and felt the weight of the unsigned forms burning a hole in my pocket where I'd slipped them when nobody was looking. Later, alone in my room, I spread the documents under the desk lamp. Every line screamed rehearsal, the foundation story, the temporary transfer, the notary who owed Ryan a favor. They'd practiced this pitch. And if I'd come home tomorrow like they expected, I would have walked straight into signing my entire future away. I took photos of every page, emailed them to myself from an account they didn't know existed, then slid the originals back into the folder exactly as they'd been. Downstairs, the TV clicked on some mindless sitcom laughter leaking through the floorboards. Up here, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision that changed everything. I was done pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. I left the folder on the coffee table exactly where Dad had placed it, walked upstairs, and started packing. 20 minutes later, I dragged my biggest suitcase down the stairs, wheels thudding on every step. The TV went silent the second they heard me. By the time I reached the living room, all four of them were standing in the doorway to the kitchen, frozen like I'd caught them mid-conversation. I smiled the brightest, fakest smile I could manage. Change of plans. My biggest client just greenlit a full brand overhaul, but they want total focus. I booked a private cabin in Leavenworth for 10 days. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, just me and the drawing tablet. I leave first thing tomorrow. Lauren recovered first. 10 days. That's sudden. Dad's eyebrows shot up, but his mouth curved into something that looked suspiciously like relief. Well, if it's for work? Mom clasped her hands. You deserve the break, honey. We'll hold down the fort. Ryan just nodded, eyes on the floor. I zipped the suitcase shut with a loud rip. Perfect. I'll be offline the whole time. If anything urgent comes up, leave a note on the fridge. Otherwise, see you when I'm back with a finished portfolio. They all murmured agreement, too fast, too eager. Lauren even offered to help carry the bag to the car, an offer she had literally never made in 31 years. I let her. The whole time she kept glancing at the folder still sitting on the coffee table like it was a winning lottery ticket. I hugged each of them goodbye at the door, quick and stiff. Mom's perfume was overwhelming. Dad's grip lingered half a second too long. Lauren whispered, "Have fun," with a smile that didn't match her eyes. I rolled the suitcase down the driveway, waved one last time, and turned the corner. 4 streets over, I checked into the Airbnb I'd booked from my phone while pretending to pack. The host had left the key in the lockbox. I wheeled the suitcase inside, locked the door, and immediately opened the 4 nanny cams I'd planted weeks ago for an unrelated paranoid moment I now thanked the universe for. Front door, kitchen, living room, hallway upstairs. All live, all recording to the cloud. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat cross-legged on the stranger's couch, and watched my family celebrate. The second my taillights disappeared, they moved like they'd rehearsed it. Dad snatched the folder. Lauren practically danced. Mom poured 4 glasses of the good red wine they saved for Christmas. Ryan finally cracked a real smile. They toasted. I heard every word through the kitchen cam. To finally getting what's ours, Lauren said, clinking glasses. Dad laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years. 10 whole days. Plenty of time. Mom wiped a fake tear. Our little girl's all grown up and generous. I muted the feed before I threw up. I spent the rest of the night setting up motion alerts, backing up footage, and mapping every blind spot in the house. By 3 in the morning, I had eyes on every room except the bathrooms and my locked bedroom. As I pulled my suitcase down the front path for the second time, pretending to leave for real, Mrs. Evelyn stepped out from behind her cedar hedge. She was wrapped in a navy raincoat despite the clear sky, white hair glowing under the streetlight. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and pulled me close. "Midnight next Friday, Serena," she whispered, breath warm against my ear. "That's when you'll finally understand everything." I opened my mouth to ask how she knew, but she was already walking away, slippers scuffing softly on the wet pavement. I stood there holding my suitcase, heart racing, watching her disappear into the dark. Then I turned the corner, checked into my real home for the next 10 days, and waited for Friday. From the small, cozy Airbnb, I opened my laptop and pulled up the 4 camera feeds side by side. The house looked exactly the same on screen as it did in real life, except now it belonged to strangers wearing my family's faces. Day 1, they were cautious. Mom vacuumed the living room like she was erasing fingerprints. Dad carried the folder from room to room, never letting it leave his sight. Lauren kept checking her phone, typing fast, deleting messages almost immediately. Day 2. The masks slipped. Lauren spread the insurance policy and brokerage statements across the dining table, photographing every page with her phone held steady on a tripod. Dad stood behind her, pointing out sections, nodding approval. Ryan brought in a scanner from his truck and fed originals through it one by one. By day 3, they stopped pretending. Mom opened my bedroom door with a paperclip, something she taught me when I was 10 and kept losing keys. She emerged 20 minutes later carrying my birth certificate, social security card, and the spare checkbook I kept in the nightstand. I watched it all in real time, volume low, stomach in knots. Every notification pinged straight to my watch. I slept in 2-hour shifts, eyes burning, coffee cold beside me. Day 4, a man in a navy suit showed up at the front door. Tall, late 40s, slick hair. Mom let him in like they'd been expecting him for years. The living room camera caught the introduction. "Marcus Delgado," he said, shaking Dad's hand. "Senior Wealth Transfer Specialist with Northwestern Mutual." Lauren handed him the folder without a word. Marcus flipped through the pages, nodding slowly, then pulled out his own stack of blank forms, thicker official letterhead. He laid them side by side with the originals and started marking where signatures would go. They spoke in low voices, but the hallway mic picked up enough. "Forgivable if the notary doesn't look too close," Marcus said. "I've got a guy in Bellevue who owes me." Dad asked about timelines. Marcus answered without hesitation. "We file the change of beneficiary Monday, funds release within 14 business days after proof of loss. Stocks liquidate same week. Clean." I paused, the feed rewound, played it again. Proof of loss. They weren't just stealing my money, they were planning the paperwork that would make it look like I was already gone. That same afternoon, someone knocked on the Airbnb door. I froze, hand over the laptop screen. Through the peephole, I saw Mrs. Evelyn holding a Tupperware of brownies and looking straight into the lens like she knew I was watching. I opened the door a crack. She pushed inside without waiting, set the container on the counter, and spoke first. "I watched my own boy do the exact same thing 20 years ago. Took me 3 years and every penny to fight it. You're smarter than I was." I closed the door and locked it. "How long have you known?" "Since the night your sister started measuring your bedroom for new furniture." She glanced at the laptop. "Show me what you have." I turned the screen. She watched 10 minutes of footage without blinking, then nodded once. "That man Delgado tried the same trick on my neighbor last year. Lost everything. I still have the old police report if you need it." For the next 4 days, Mrs. Evelyn became my only human contact. She brought soup, sat in the armchair, and watched the feeds with me. She pointed out details I missed, the way Mom kept touching the new will they'd printed, the way Lauren practiced my signature on scratch paper, until it looked almost perfect. Every night we added new clips to a shared encrypted folder. Every morning she left before sunrise with a new plan for the next step. By the 8th day, the house on screen looked like a war room. Whiteboards covered in timelines, color-coded folders. A countdown calendar on the fridge marked transfer complete in red marker. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours straight in a week. My hands shook when I poured coffee. But I kept watching. Because Friday was coming. Friday midnight arrived with the soft chime of my laptop clock. I sat alone in the dark Airbnb, 4 feeds glowing on the screen, volume turned all the way up. The front door camera caught Marcus Delgado stepping inside at 11:58 sharp, carrying a leather briefcase and a bottle of Veuve Clicquot. Mom took the champagne with a giggle I'd never heard from her before. Dad clapped him on the back like an old friend. Lauren was already in the living room. Lights dimmed, coffee table cleared, except for a neat stack of documents and 4 crystal flutes. They wasted no time. Marcus opened the briefcase and laid out the final forms. Change of beneficiary for the $2 million policy, transfer on death, instructions for the brokerage account, and a newly notarized durable power of attorney dated 3 days earlier. The notary stamp looked fresh, the ink still glossy. Dad poured the champagne while Lauren uncapped a blue pen and slid it across the table toward the empty chair that should have been mine. Marcus raised his glass. To flawless execution. They drank. The bubbles caught the light. Lauren picked up the pen, pressed it to the first signature line, and began writing my name in slow, deliberate strokes. She had practiced for days. The loops matched almost perfectly. When she finished the last page, she held it up to the camera like a trophy. Serena Caldwell, she read aloud, voice dripping with satisfaction. Signed and witnessed. Mom leaned over, added her witness signature beneath. Dad followed. Marcus stamped the notary seal a second time for good measure, then slipped every original into his briefcase and snapped it shut. To 2 million liquid by the end of the month, Dad said, refilling glasses. And the stocks sell. Monday morning, Lauren added. Brokers already queued. Marcus checked his watch. Paperwork files electronically at 8 a.m. After that, it's irreversible without a court order. They toasted again, louder this time, clinking glasses hard enough to make the mics crackle. Ryan finally spoke, voice thick. We did it. Mom wiped tears that weren't from joy. She'll never even know until it's too late. I watched Lauren lean back on the couch, eyes closed, smiling like every weight had lifted off her shoulders. Dad wrapped an arm around Mom. Marcus counted out thick envelopes from the briefcase and handed one to each of them. Commissions, I realized. Cash tonight, the rest when the money landed. The room spun. My chest tightened until I couldn't pull in air. The feeds blurred. I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize, half sob, half scream, before my vision tunneled to black. I came to on the carpet, cheek against cold hardwood, laptop tipped sideways but still running. The timestamp read 12:47 a.m. The living room feed showed empty couches and half-finished champagne flutes. They had gone to bed to celebrate in private. My pulse hammered in my ears. Blood pressure had crashed. I knew the feeling from the one time I'd fainted in college. I crawled to the kitchenette, gulped water straight from the tap, and forced myself upright. The recordings were intact. Every second, every signature, every toast captured in high definition. I opened a new browser tab, searched for the top estate litigation attorney in Seattle, and dialed the after-hours emergency line. A woman answered on the third ring. Rebecca Sullivan, she said, voice calm and sharp. I didn't waste time on introductions. They just forged my signature on a $2 million beneficiary change while I watched live. I have video. I need an emergency hold filed before 8 tomorrow morning. She didn't miss a beat. Send me everything. I'll meet you at the courthouse when it opens. I emailed the midnight folder, hands still trembling, then sat back and stared at the frozen image of my family raising their glasses to my ruin. They thought they had won. They had no idea the clock had only just started. I woke on the Airbnb floor at 3 a.m. with a headache that felt like a hammer behind my eyes, but the rage burned hotter than the pain. I dragged myself to the kitchen sink, splashed cold water on my face, and opened the laptop again. The house feeds showed nothing but darkness and silence now. They were sleeping off their victory. I called Rebecca Sullivan back. She answered on the first ring, voice wide awake. Send me the midnight recording and every prior clip, she said. I'm already drafting the emergency petition for temporary restraining order and asset freeze. We file ex parte at 8 sharp. By 4:30, she had everything. By 5, she emailed the finished documents, 53 pages of sworn declarations, time-stamped video exhibits, and a request for immediate hold on all transactions involving my insurance policy and brokerage account. At 7:30, I met her outside the King County Superior Court building in downtown Seattle. She wore a charcoal suit and carried 2 briefcases like weapons. We walked straight to the clerk's window the moment it opened. The judge on duty took the bench at 8:15. Rebecca laid out the case in under 10 minutes, forged signatures, recorded confessions, imminent irreparable harm. The judge signed the order on the spot. By 8:40, the holds were in place. No changes, no transfers, no liquidation until a full hearing. Rebecca didn't stop there. While the clerk stamped copies, she pulled up the county recorder database on her phone and ran the house address. A second lien had been filed 3 weeks earlier, a home equity line of credit for $450,000, maxed out the same week I left for retreat. The proceeds had already been wired to an account in Lauren's name only. My parents had taken a second mortgage against the house I still legally owned, betting everything on the insurance money that would never come. Rebecca looked up from the screen. They're underwater. One missed payment and the bank starts foreclosure. I stared at the lien document until the letters blurred. They hadn't just planned to steal my inheritance. They'd gambled the roof over their heads on it. We spent the rest of the morning serving notices. Rebecca sent certified copies to Northwestern Mutual Vanguard and the notary in Bellevue. By noon, every institution had confirmed receipt and compliance. The money was locked. She handed me the final stack of filed papers. They'll get served personally this afternoon. After that, the clock is on our side. I drove back to Issaquah in silence, parked 2 blocks from the house, and watched from the sidewalk as the process server knocked on the front door. Dad answered in his bathrobe. The envelope changed hands. His face went white. I didn't wait to see the rest. I had 10 days of retreat left, and I intended to use every hour preparing the next strike. I drove into downtown Seattle and parked beneath the Northwestern Mutual Tower 10 minutes early. Rebecca Sullivan waited in the lobby, briefcase in one hand, coffee in the other. She didn't smile. We took the elevator to the 23rd floor in silence. The conference room held 8 people, 2 company attorneys, a fraud investigator, a senior vice president, and across the table, my entire family. Dad's tie was crooked. Mom clutched a tissue she never used. Lauren sat rigid, arms crossed. Ryan stared at the tabletop like it might open and swallow him. The VP opened the folder in front of him. Miss Caldwell, thank you for coming. We've reviewed the court order and the materials your counsel provided. Effective immediately, we are denying the beneficiary change request and placing an indefinite administrative hold on the policy. Dad started to stand. This is a mistake. The investigator cut him off. We've also forwarded everything to law enforcement and our internal fraud unit. Attempting to redirect a $2 million death benefit using forged documents is a felony in this state. Lauren's voice cracked. She agreed to the foundation. Rebecca slid a slim stack across the glass. Here are the signed declarations from the notary confirming he never witnessed Serena Caldwell's signature. Here is the time-stamped recording of the actual signing event. And here is the emergency restraining order that has been in effect for 9 days. Mom finally looked at me. Her eyes were red, pleading. I looked straight through her. The VP continued. Additionally, the brokerage has frozen the securities account. Liquidation attempts have been reversed. Dad slumped back into his chair. Ryan covered his face with both hands. One of the attorneys leaned forward. Your clients should retain criminal counsel. We will be cooperating fully with any investigation. Rebecca closed her briefcase with a soft click. Civil claims will follow separately. We stood to leave. At the door I paused, turned back once. I grew up in that house, I said, voice flat. I paid the mortgage when you couldn't. I paid for Lauren's wedding. I paid the property taxes last year so the county wouldn't put a lien on it. And you took a second mortgage against it anyway, betting on money you planned to steal from me. Silence. I'm done. I walked out. Rebecca followed. The elevator doors closed on their stunned faces. 3 weeks later, the bank foreclosed. The house sold at auction for less than the combined liens. Dad and Mom moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Renton. Lauren and Ryan separated the same month. The divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences and financial ruin. I changed my number, blocked every email, and sold the few childhood things I still wanted. Mrs. Evelyn got the rocking chair from the porch. She earned it. Sometimes people ask if I miss them. I don't. Blood doesn't make family. Trust does. Respect does. Love that doesn't come with a price tag does. When those things die, you bury them and you walk away. No second chances. No explanations. No guilt. Some betrayals are final, and that's okay.